Howdy everyone, and welcome back to Southbound I-35, your stop for Texas country and red dirt music news and reviews, where you won't have to worry about those Nashville blues. I'm your host David Ryan, and for this episode I sat down and did an interview with Jarrod Johnson about his career in music. Before I get into that though, I need to make a quick correction on a mistake that I made in my previous episode. And then, after the interview, there will be even more music shoutouts. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy your cruise down Southbound I-35, the road that always takes you home. When I gave background about Jared Felucci in my last episode, I mentioned that he'd played guitar in Sam Riggs' song When the Lights Go Out. However, Jared let me know that he was actually Blake Powell playing guitar in that song and he was just in the music video. Also, just one more quick thing before the interview. I had Monday night off this week, so I took the opportunity to see Nytomt at the Saxon Pub. I'd been trying to catch him again since I saw him open for the Shane Smith Geronimo pre-release party, which y'all can check out in episode 5. It was an acoustic show with him and Bennett Brown playing along on the fiddle, and they did a great job. Zach has a lot of down-tempo, thought-provoking songs that are great listening. He is currently in the process of cutting an album that should be out early next year, but you can check him out at zachnytomt.com and on Twitter at twitter.com/zachnytomptmusic. And now, let's get on to the interview.
I'm here at Uncle Gary's Bar in Pflugerville with Jarrod Johnson.
How you doing, bud?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm hanging in there, man.
I featured Jarrod on episode 6 of my podcast, and we were able to get an interview pretty quick after that, so here we are. So where are you from exactly?
Originally, I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Originally.
Okay.
I live in Round Rock, Texas now, but I started out up there. My father and his mother, they had a huge love for traditional country music and Texas music in particular.
Awesome.
And so that's kind of where I developed my love for all things Waylon and Willie and everything else, and of course bluegrass. But yeah, that's where I'm from, and I did my time in Nashville for about 20 years, and thanks to Daryl Dodd, here I am in Texas. I'm real happy to be here. So
glad to have you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
What did you do before you started getting into music?
Well, I was absolutely perfect student in high school. Actually, I graduated with a 4.1 because my honors classes, they bumped your GPA up.
Right.
And I was supposed to go to college and play basketball. I had a scholarship offer from Stanford. I could have gone there.
Wow.
I could have played basketball at Stanford. And I guess at that time I was just burnt out on basketball. My parents, they never discouraged my music. They always loved it. Every time I wrote a new song, they wanted to hear it, all that. I mean, they were always behind me 100%. And so when I told them, I made the decision after I graduated, I'm like, man, I'm sick of basketball. I really want to try this music thing. And all they had to say was, that's fine, we support you, but you better go get a job. So,
right.
So I went and got a job installing, home theaters and custom home audio up there in Minneapolis for all the rich folks, and that was fun too. It paid the bills for me, before I got my first publishing deal. So that's
awesome.
That's kind of a little background on that.
So, do you say that the music you grew up with inspired you to get into the music industry? Or?
Oh, it definitely did. My grandmother and my older sister, she lives in Napa, California now, but she still has, in their mind, they're my grandmother's old 78s. You know what those are, the little records that you put on the old 78s.
Had some of those.
And it's all Bill Monroe and Hank Williams and Webb Pierce and Ferlin Husky. And so that's kind of what I heard a lot growing up, and I still remember the day my dad and we were sitting down in our basement. We had a record player down there, and he was pulling out all his old records. And I still remember the day he pulled out an old Hank Williams Jr. record, and this was before Jr. had his accident and went outlaw. He played me some of that record, and I remember the song 11 Roses. And a guy from Texas named Daryl McCall wrote that song. And I remember that song, and that was just and I learned that song immediately. I learned it, and I was 7th or 8th grade. I can't remember, but I just fell in love with that song, and but it was always country. Every time we went on fishing trips, and I would be 8, 9, 10-hour drives, and my dad would have traditional country radio on, and it didn't really it wasn't pounded into my head because I always loved it.
Yeah.
So I just that's what I grew up on, and that's what I love, and that's what I'm trying to follow.
Cool. So we were talking a little bit earlier before we got on here, and you said you mostly play acoustic.
Yeah, right now I'm mostly playing acoustic. It's a lot of radio tours that I'm doing. I'll go to different towns and get on the radio stations and promote whatever single I have out there, and right now it's just easy for me to go to a bar or a venue, whatever, and plug in my guitar and play. And people seem to, they're reacting to it, they like it. And eventually, I do need to do a full band eventually, but right now this is working for me, so I just stick with the acoustic stuff.
Yeah, it's good to start out with exactly what you're comfortable with. And
Exactly, yep.
And so, exactly, for your own personal music, what are your biggest influences?
Oh, geez, that's huge. And Keith Whitley, of course, Lefty Frizzell, Bob Wills. You can't leave out Waylon and Willie, of course.
Never.
Farron Young, Webb Pierce, Ernest Tubb. If you get a little bit newer, and anything newer than Keith Whitley, Earl Thomas Conley, that's another huge one. I love me some ETC. He was a huge influence on how I write. And as far as songwriters go, you got Walt Wilkins, Darryl Dodd, of course. I cannot leave out Darryl. I was a fan of Darryl's long before we became friends.
He was on the track that I demoed on episode 6.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
You played MP Pillow?
Yeah,
All right, nice. Now that song, I wrote it with a guy named Ron Avis and Phil Meredith. He was also in on it. And Darryl was staying with us in Nashville. The guy that I used to build buses for in Nashville, he was Darryl's road manager when Darryl had a record deal on Columbia. And so Darryl would stay with us whenever he come to town. And he knew I was going to the studio that day and wanted to come with me. And we were cutting that song. And I wrote that song. I wanted to give it to the Tom Jumpers, which is a Western, an all-acoustic Western swing group out of that area. And anyway, they didn't cut it. But Darryl was there, and he came in and sang background vocals on it, and just by mistake, a station out of Fort Worth started playing the song, and that's kind of how I turned into an artist. I never really thought I could sing my own songs for people. I was always just a songwriter, and that's kind of how this whole artist thing accidentally happened. And I got Darryl Dodd to thank for it. So
cool. Mistakes or accidents are some of the best things that can happen.
Sometimes they are. Sometimes I never would have met my wife hadn't it been for him. So,
what would you say the hardest song about being a musician is? Like singing or songwriting or playing? Or
the hardest part about being a musician, making a living. That's the hardest part. You do it because you love to do it, and that's why you do it. And when you get to a show and people know your songs and they're singing along, that's great. But the hardest part, is when you're doing shows for free. A lot of shows you do for free.
Right.
You don't get paid to go visit radio stations. You don't get paid for interviews, and that's definitely the hardest part. And it's just making a living. It's just scraping by. Trying to take care of responsibilities on an income that's very limited.
Right.
And even the top guys in Texas music will tell you that. I mean, it's really, really, really tough just making a living doing this. But when it's like that Alan Jackson song. When the crowd's into it, it makes this way of living seem right. And that's why we do it.
You were talking about how you were in Nashville for a while. How was that? And exactly what made you decide to change from Nashville to come down here to Texas?
Well, after I started doing custom home audio, I went to a broadcasting school in Minneapolis, and I was going for a certificate in broadcasting, not a degree. I was just wanting to get a certificate in broadcasting because I thought, hey, radio is a great way to get into the music business. And before, I guess I was only 6 months into the program, and I ended up getting a job at a small market station in northwest Wisconsin called WXCE. And so I quit school, went to work, and I was doing interviews it was called the Hodag Country Music Festival, which is in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. And Randy Travis was there, and his bus driver was also one of his co-writers. And his name was Ron Avis. And me and Ron, we met in the catering vehicle and started talking, exchanging songs and everything. And he called me up 3 days later and said, man, I like what you're doing. Come to Nashville, I'll give you a publishing deal. And so I moved down. I guess I was just before I turned 20 years old, I moved to Nashville and started writing songs, and that's what I was getting paid to do. And nothing ever really, made it the big time, but I did that for a long time. I did that for a very long time, and like I said, when Darryl came in and sang that song with me, it was just a demo. That's all it was. It wasn't meant to be on the radio, but somehow that station in Fort Worth just picked it up and started playing it, and that's what started this whole transition into, singing my own songs. But Nashville itself, I'm thick-skinned because of Nashville. You get to hear Know a lot.
Right.
And there's a lot of people there that will take advantage of any just starry-eyed young kid that comes into town. And it was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. I'm really glad I did it because I think it really makes the music that I want to play a whole lot better. And at least the people here in Oklahoma and Kansas, they want to hear it. And my goal is to please the people that want to hear the music I'm singing. and they seem to like it here. So I'm not a big fan of Nashville, but the experience itself was really good for me. So
that's good. So experience is always a good thing, regardless of where you're doing it.
Absolutely.
What would you say the biggest difference between Nashville and Texas is?
Nashville and Texas, I really think it's the listeners. People here, they actually want to hear the music you have to write. In Nashville, these days especially, if it's not about a backbeat or some catchy little hook or whatever, people don't listen to it. Mm-hmm. But here in Texas, you can, any song that you write, the minute you're at a venue or a bar and you say, hey, I wrote this song, people shut up and they listen and they want to hear it, and they'll tell you if the song is bad. They will tell you, the listeners, the fans, the friends, and everything will tell you, hey, that song's not good, don't play that again. And in Nashville, they don't even give you that chance. So here, really, it's just the fans here are so much better. And the music business itself, it's run by the artists. In Nashville, it's not run by the artists; it's run by the record labels and everything else.
Right.
And here, it's all about the artist. It's all about the song. It's all about that. So that's really the biggest difference. It's here. It's the way it's supposed to be here. And you do have a few conglomerates, a few big people that kind of try to take over everything, but the fans here do not let something like that happen, and that's just a beautiful thing. It's all about the fans here. It's all about the people buying your records. It's all about the people listening to the songs, and that's the big difference between Nashville and Texas, I think. That's just my opinion. It doesn't mean it's the right one. But
did you have to work with a lot of focus groups when you were up in Nashville?
Focus groups?
The groups that get a bunch of people here and say,
no,
like this song?
I never did that, and that might have been my problem, because the people that told me that this is how you have to write, this is what we want to hear, this is what you have to do, I always kind of snubbed my nose at them. And that might have been my problem, because I never cooperated with what was going on there. And I had some holds for Blake Shelton. Tracy Lawrence cut one of my songs, never made the record. Buddy Jewell cut one of my songs, never made the record. And I'm ashamed to say it, even Billy Ray Cyrus cut one of my songs and never made a record. But I really think it's because I wasn't cooperative. I didn't do what they wanted me to do. I never did. I always wanted to do the music I wanted to do, and they didn't like that. And even my first album, it's demos, it's songwriting demos that I was doing, and the only reason I was singing on them was to save money. I didn't want to pay a demo singer.
Right.
And even that, I would have done things different if I knew this album was going to take off and do what it did here in Texas. I would have done things a whole lot different. And it was I just threw a bunch of songs together for my family and friends and said, hey, here you go, I got a CD. And so the next record, I will definitely pay a lot more attention to detail. I'm going to record it in Texas. I'm going to keep it all Texas, and it'll be songs that I'm proud of. It'll be songs that I want the people to hear. It won't be ear candy. It won't be what I think a publishing company wants to hear or whatever. So
good.
So that's where I'm going with that.
Sounds awesome. Are you working on your second album right now, or are you still...
In January, I'm going to start recording it. So Miles Williams, who we talked about earlier,
right?
I'm going to sign with his record label, and they're going to record the first single in January, and then we'll finish the album in February. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's where it's going right there. And I'll do 2 or 3 songs that I didn't write, but for the most part, I'm going to write the whole album. So I've already got it written. I've got more songs that I want to write, so maybe a few of those songs will get bumped for the songs that I'm going to write.
Right. Sounds like something to look forward to.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to it, at least.
So, do you have any favorite musicians that are new, or that you not necessarily influences that you just like to listen to?
Guys that I like to listen to that are new.
Any genre, whatever.
Because of my older daughters, I like Cody Johnson. I like hearing Cody Johnson music, and of course I'm a Stoney fan. Darryl Dawes not that new, but anything he puts out, I'm going to buy. Any new guys? I like Sam Riggs. I love what that kid's doing. I love what Sam's doing. Mike Ryan's album is absolutely ridiculous. I love that. Mike Ryan. I don't know.
I haven't actually had a chance to hear his music.
You got to hear some Mike Ryan. He's done okay on the charts, but I don't think he gets the airplay he deserves.
Oh, okay.
He gets a lot of airplay on here in Austin, mm-hmm. But everywhere else, it's...
Heard him. I'm like I said earlier, and I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm horrible with names. If I hear it on the radio,
right,
and I don't hear his name immediately after, I might think he's someone else. Like I honestly confused John Wolfe with George Strait a few times.
That's unexcusable, man. That's just
I feel really bad about it.
I'm going to call you out right now. That is just not good.
I feel really bad about it.
But Mike Ryan's album is great. And I'll always listen to Ray Wiley. I know he's not new, but anytime he puts something out new, I'm going to listen to it. So there's a lot. There's no one single person that I like to listen to. I mean, there's a lot of them that are just incredibly talented, and I love to listen to them.
And do you have any words for any aspiring musicians out there who want to do this for a living? And
just be ready to be broke a lot. Be ready to do some time in jail. I'm kidding. It's not easy. The whole overnight success thing is a myth. But if it happens to you, it happens to maybe 1 in every million of us. That's awesome. But if you're going to do it, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a long, hard climb, and you're going to hear the word no a lot, and you're going to get some thick skin. But if you really love it, you'll keep doing it, and that's really what matters. So.
And what are some of your favorite venues to play at?
Well, of course, Uncle Gary's where we're at right now. I love this place in Pflugerville. This is really a cool place to play at. I'm playing this weekend at a little bitty bar in Amarillo called Austin's Texas Pub. I love playing up there. And then down in Pearsall and Kennedy, Texas, there's a couple places. The Red Dog Ice House and the Location 581 Saloon. Absolutely love playing there. Pretty much anywhere I go, man, it doesn't matter as long as people show up and they like my music. I mean, there's really nothing that stands out. Gary's is kind of special to me, though, because it's so close to home. Mm-hmm. And I know the people here, and so this place does kind of hold a special little place in my heart. So,
well, thanks for coming out, and definitely check out his concerts if you live near any of those venues that he's talked about.
On my website, by the way, it's JarrodJohnson.net, JarrodJohnson.net. You got links to my Twitter account, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Everything's on there. My schedule, links to download my music, all that stuff is there. So I just want to throw that out there too. I don't mention that enough.
Well, that's fine, and I'll put a link in the description also.
All right, cool. Very cool.
Well, thanks very much for coming out.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
I'll be checking out his album right after this, so stay tuned.
Once again, a big thanks to Jarrod Johnson for taking the time to meet up. There has been a slight change of plans, however. I won't be talking about his album in this episode, but I will in the next episode. But for now, let's check out this week's shoutouts. First up is Susan Hickman. Susan Hickman is a singer based out of Houston, Texas, who mixes a little rock into a more traditional country sound. She has a good, strong voice and a great range of songs. This is her song, Moth to a Flame. If you want to hear her live, you can find her at the Redneck Country Club and Mesones Saloon in Houston, Texas on October 4th, America in Houston, Texas on October 10th, and Moe's Place in Katy, Texas on October 11th. You can also check out her music on SusanHickman.com and follow her on Twitter at twitter.com/SusanHickman. Up next is Midnight River Choir. Midnight River Choir is a band made out of 4 strangers that met floating the Guadalupe River one night and decided to form a band. They have a great raw rock sound and have a lot of talent. This is their song, Circles.
I tried to keep from losing sleep. I tried, but I counted up 1,000 sheep. I tried.
If you want to hear them live, you can catch them at Brewster Street Ice House in Corpus Christi, Texas on October 8th, Big Texas Saloon in Webster, Texas on October 9th, and the Sunset Concert Series in Grapevine, Texas on October 10th. You can also check out more of their music on MidnightRiverChoir.com and follow them on Twitter at twitter.com/12amriverchoir. And finally, for my final shout out, a name that everyone needs to know if they're getting into Texas country, Robert Earl Keen. Robert Earl Keen is a mainstay of Texas country and has been for a long time now, starting off his career in 1984. He has an utterly unique sound and has done a huge variety of music, including many excellent story songs. This is The Road Goes On Forever, which is probably the song to learn before going to any of his concerts.
And the party never ends. Sonny was a loner, older than the rest. He was going in the Navy, but couldn't pass
Well, I'd love to go into more of his background and music. I'll have to save that for a time when I can do a proper feature on him. But if you want to hear more of his music, head on over to robertearlkeen.com and follow him on Twitter at twitter.com/robertearlkeen1. Well, that's it for this week's episode. I hope y'all enjoyed listening, and if you haven't already, please subscribe on iTunes or the Stitcher Smart Radio app, and also let me know what you think by writing and reviewing. Once again, thanks for listening to Southbound I-35, the road that always takes you home. All music featured on this episode of Southbound I-35 was used with permission from the respective artists. If you have any concerns about how I've used your music, want to submit your own music for review, or just say howdy, please email me at southboundpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/SBI35.